about seeing God tonight. Um, and you might not hear, you probably won't hear any scriptures or anything that maybe you haven't heard somebody say before. But what I pray and what I expect and what I hope for is that we have an understanding of a reality of these things. I'm all about, especially in recent years, I mean, really strong, probably the last year or two, about knowing the person of God. It's so easy to try to know Him only theologically, and the Bible is the written Word of God. It's not. We don't ever want to discredit that, and we don't. I've never exhausted its wisdom. It continues to speak to me. It continues to point me to Him. It's what told me about the good news. It revealed it to me, or the Holy Spirit revealed it to me through that Word. But it's possible to just know the book and not know the person of the book. And really what our growth is, what we're growing in understanding is really knowing the person of God. And knowing Him, the person of God, personally, I want to say intimately, but people have made it almost a spooky, I don't know, almost a deep, mystical kind of a thing. We want to simplify that tonight. God wanted to be known. He wanted to be seen, and He wanted to take the mystery out of this thing. So we want to look at that tonight. Now, I want to start off by saying this. There's a terminology that I've been hearing in the world a whole lot from people in recent years, and it's something we were talking about it recently, and I said, where's all this coming from? I'm hearing it all the time. People we know will use this terminology. I hear it on television, and people are saying, here's what it is. They say, I want to be seen. And I thought, I've never heard, I don't think I ever heard people say that until just, not that long ago. And I'm hearing it a lot. And I was asking Judy, I said, what does this mean? Someone had told us that I just want to be seen. I've heard that a number of times, and I said, what does it mean? So we talked about it, and so I got a feel for what it means, and I looked at it, and I thought about it, prayed about it, and realized that basically there's 4 points I want to bring out, and bear with me as I lay this out, because ultimately what we're talking about is seeing Him and being seen by God. But the way it relates to people is that what these people are asking for, maybe you've used this terminology, maybe you understand it more than I do, but I see that people ever since the fall in the Garden of Eden, they've had a need. I see it in my own life. My history becomes so much more clearer to me when I see what I was feeling the need for, and it actually explains some of the stupid things that I did. Because I had a perception, I had a need, I had a God-shaped hole in me, and I needed to be loved, I needed to be known, I needed God, I needed God to see me. Of course, He always did, but I didn't know that. I needed somebody to see me. I didn't feel like I got it from people. I was a very irritating child, I believe. I mean, for a long time, I thought my parents were just mean, but now that I'm older, I look back and I thought, I can understand how I must have just drove them nuts. I can't put all the blame on them when I look back at it now. And I believe I was. And a lot of it was really, I wasn't conscious of it at the time, but it's totally clear to me now that I was looking for attention. And I didn't know how to get good attention, or maybe I did, but it seemed like it was too much work. I could have just obeyed my parents. Maybe that would have gotten some positive attention, but I went the other way. It seemed so much easier to just disobey than to live up to what they wanted me to do. So I got a lot of negative attention, and at least they saw me, and I felt like I was the unseen one out of the three of us in the family. Probably the others felt like that way too themselves. But anyway, people want to be seen in a sense. And so what they mean by that, I believe, is they say that they want to be acknowledged and not ignored. When they are with someone, when they're with a group of people or with an individual, they want that person to acknowledge them and not look past them. They want people feel like they want to feel like they're important, like they count, like they're worth your time, worth your attention. They want to be seen. They want to be affirmed by people and not indifferent. And all these are very close to the same thing, but people are looking for a sense of worth because most of humanity feels like they're lacking it. And they're trying to get it from people, and ultimately you can't get enough of it from people. If you get some of it from people, it's never going to really be enough. But people are looking for it. I got attention. I did get attention when I was growing up. It was very painful attention, lots of pain in that attention. But I wasn't really getting affirmed. I got a lot of spankings. I got a lot of lectures. I got a lot of, and the way I took it was it continued to like beat me down until I just kept getting more lost and more in the dark. The people like to feel like you have, or people want others to make room for them. They don't want to feel like they're pushed out, like they're an outcast, like they're not as good as others. It goes back to the old kids wishing they could sit at the cool table, whatever. Of course, then you get older, and then you don't even want to be one of those cool people. But you're looking for it. People are looking for it in those times. People want to be understood and not misunderstood. This is what I can relate to. Now, how many of you think it's real fun to be misunderstood by somebody? And it's because they don't see you, or really they don't know you. Things will get back to you sometimes, where people will say something about you that you know in your heart is really not right. They just misunderstood, and sometimes you can't do anything about it. But you know in your heart, right? You know if they really knew you, if they saw you, if they understood you, they wouldn't think that. But what people do is they'll hear or see something, and they'll create their own narrative, their own story about it, and say, "Oh, you're just this person, or you're just doing that, or you're just that kind of person," and you're much more complex than that. And it's very common, and people do it. And if we look at this world, we know there's a lot of anger in the world. We know that there's a whole lot that we've seen in our country in recent times. And it's just amplification because of media and the noise that we're able to hear now. But what happens, and I've caught myself doing it many times. What happens is that I can create a narrative about someone and say, "Oh, the only reason they're doing this is because of that." And then I just simplify that person or that type of people or that group of people, when in reality I'm not giving them or God enough credit, and I'm simplifying them while I'm acknowledging my own complexities. And really, I do that out of a lack of curiosity, not really wanting to know and understand. So to be seen means people say, "I want to be understood, not misunderstood." It works the other way around too. We want that, and not only do people feel a void or a want or a need for that, but it's something that I like to be conscious of giving. Like I said, bear with me. We'll start talking about Jesus here in just a moment. But I'd say a couple of months ago, I was walking into a Walgreens near where I live, and somebody was walking across the parking lot trying to get my attention, saying, "Hey." Well, when I looked over, I could tell immediately that this guy was going to ask for money. Now, a lot of times I'll just do it. I'll just, if I have some cash in there, I'll give him a little something. A lot of times, but there's sometimes I don't want to mess with them. Sometimes I'm like, they're just going to be trouble. They're going to, they're not just going to ask for money and go on. Sometimes I wonder that, and so a lot of times I have this battle in my mind real quickly, like, should I do something or should I not, or should I? And sometimes I just ignore. Sometimes I just think, like, I don't want to mess with this right now, and so I just act like I don't hear him. I just keep going. I don't want to. If I look at him, I think then I get hooked in, I get trapped, and I just don't feel like it right now. I just want to keep going. So I just kept walking toward the store. He goes, hey, he says, hey, sir. And then I kept walking. He goes, then I heard him say, do you see me? And it hit me funny. It hit my heart because I've been thinking about these things. And he says, do you see me? And I realized I'm making him invisible right now. And so I stopped and I turned. And he said it again. He got closer to me and he says, I'm a person. Do you see me? And he looked like a mess, And he goes, I'm a person. Do you see me? You had to actually look through the mess to see the person in some ways. And on purpose, I stopped and I said, I do. And you know how, and things go through your head really, really quick. And I thought, for a moment, I was in his shoes. I thought, what would it be like? He says, nobody sees me. He says, I've been invisible. He said, here for the last hour. and we can justify it with reason. We're like, well, yeah, because you're bothering people, and there are reasons, And then you're like, well, why are you in that condition? What did you do? And all these things can happen. There can be all these reasons, but for that moment, I felt real good seeing this person that was being unseen. And so, and he did want money, and I didn't have any cash at all. And I told him, wait. And I said, I'm going to Walgreens. They'll give me cash after I buy something, and that's why I like to go to Walgreens, because I come out richer than right? and so it came out. But the point is, and it was just a couple of minutes, but I gave him time, and those 4 points, actually, I looked back and I thought those were done. I acknowledged him when I could have very easily not even acknowledged him. The guy wanted to, first of all, be acknowledged. Second, he wanted to be affirmed and not have me just indifferent toward him. So I, on purpose, gave him attention. I made room for him, and I consciously thought, okay, I'm going to do this. This is very inconvenient. I could be getting into a mess here, but I'm going to take a couple of minutes out of my wonderful life and make room for this guy who would be so easy to not make room for him in my life for this particular moment. And I spoke to him a couple of minutes and talked to him like a person and got a little bit more understanding of him. But that's an example of somebody that looks very invisible and wanted to be seen. That's a very extreme example, but you can see it in that. Now, what the heart of man has longed for, we can say it's the love of God, and it is, but let's break it down in this way. What is it like to be seen by God? It's so beautiful. It's so wonderful. We have a story of Hagar, right, in Genesis chapter 16. And she gets kicked out of the house. She's not worth anything. She's not worth, Sarah doesn't want her in there. Abraham don't care either. Whatever Sarah wants is fine with him. He's already used her, really, And she's kicked out of the house, and she's out there in the desert. She's far away from me. Nobody can see her. And she's about to die. Her and her child both are about to die, and nobody cares. Abraham and Sarah would never know. They have no idea whatever's going to happen to her. We don't know what happened. She could die out there. They don't care. It doesn't matter to her. They're indifferent toward her now. She's gone. She's out of their life. If she does die right there, it's not going to change their life at all. It's not going to affect them at all, or anybody else probably for that matter. And so she's out there all alone in the desert, and try to put yourself there just for a moment. You're in a situation, and we've all been in situations, or you probably have, I know I have, where I felt almost like in that desert, where I felt like I feel so alone right now. I feel so helpless. I feel so hopeless. Of course, the more that you grow in knowing the person of God, you don't feel so helpless and hopeless anymore. It gets better, and it doesn't last that long. So that's always good encouragement for us as we're growing. But she's out there and she feels like she's all alone. I mean, she's got nothing. She's tried everything she can, and she's about to die of thirst, and so is her boy. And we know that God opened her eyes and she drank water. And not only that, but God talked to her. God, in all these things, something's going on now. God talks to her, and not only does he let her know that he hears her and sees her, and he's doing something for her, and he cares about her, and he's right there with her when it doesn't look like anybody else is with her, but says even your child is going to grow up, and he's going to be great, and he's going to become a great nation, and all these things are going. So now she has a future. And so really, if you look at this, the whole miracle of seeing the water that saved her life at that moment, that was probably the smallest part of that whole thing, because what she says in verse 13, it says, thereafter, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord. After that, the Lord who had spoken to her, she said, you are the God who sees me. People say, I want to be seen these days. You are the God who sees me. And she also said, have I truly seen the one who sees me in all of my life? Now, understand, she was in that situation. She was, many would say she was being mistreated by Sarah. Not only that, but if you think of the culture and the time, how women, even a woman who's not a slave like she was, are subjected. And not only is she a woman, but she's a woman slave. She doesn't matter. and nobody sees her. If anybody does see her, what do they see her as? She's a slave. She's somebody to be used for you. And so here's God, sees her, somebody cared for her, somebody helped her, somebody didn't come to use her, somebody didn't come just for what she could do for them. Somebody came that cared. Somebody cared, and when she thought nobody knew she was out there, she found out somebody sees me out here. You can take that home right there. I got better stuff than this, but if you got nothing else than that, you go out of here knowing God sees me everywhere that I am. Now, what I want us to do is we all will nod our head and say yes to these things because we know that they're true, but there's a depth of knowing it that we can have. There's a depth of knowing it so that when you're in a situation that's not so pretty, and she was in a situation that wasn't so pretty, when you're in a situation like that, you have an awareness that you are acknowledged by God. Not just that God is just is with you, but doesn't know what's going on. Gosh, I will never think that again. I will never think God doesn't know. I will never think God doesn't care. I will never think God is not doing something about this. Never, ever. I've been seen by God. This kid who tried to get attention, who wanted to be seen, who felt like he was not seen, didn't feel like I was really seen in most of my situations for a long time in life, has found out that God sees me. And look at Hagar. We were talking about this today after the morning service, thinking, I would like to know more of the story of Hagar. I had never thought of this before. I didn't care. I didn't even see her really. But after reading this and looking at this, and we were talking about this, and I thought, I would like to know what happened to Hagar's life. It must have been pretty good. Some good stuff happened to her. She didn't die in that desert. We know that. What did she do? I don't know. We don't know. But whatever it was, she went knowing that God sees me. She was a different woman. She probably never felt helpless and hopeless like that again. She probably did encounter some challenges in life. I'm sure she did. But she knew something, that God sees me in my situation. God sees me where I'm at. Also, not only does he see you in that way,